Thanks, Atish, and thanks for everybody for being here and for the invitation to speak. Before I get started, I'd love to get a really quick sense for who's in the audience. Can I just get a quick sense, like for entrepreneurs, founders? Okay, how about just everyone working at a startup? Okay, marketing, tech execs? Okay, and then like service people for the industry, venture investors, that sort of thing? Okay, cool. That's awesome, really helpful. Is there a clicker? Yeah, here we go. All right. So let me Satish just told you all about me, so I'll just tell you a tiny little bit about myself. I've been primarily an entrepreneur in mostly consumer internet and often in the area of marketing. My last startup was a thing called Threadsy, and it was acquired by Facebook in 2012. When I joined Facebook, I talked to Mark just before the acquisition, and this is something he had said about a month before, on the eve of the IPO. We had $0 in revenue from mobile at the time. That's 2012, and my job coming in was to try to extend our ad products onto mobile. It's kind of amazing to think that just 5 years ago we weren't on mobile at all in terms of ads. So it's been a crazy run. I'm going to talk about a couple of different things today. I'm going to speak at a high level about Facebook ads and kind of how they work, and at least from my point of view, why they work. And we'll tell you a little bit about how we think about Facebook ads. And then I'll talk about startup growth, which is a little bit more of a sort of philosophical conversation. And then we'll talk about putting it together, and I'll try to save some time for questions. So I'll move through the material quickly. All right, Facebook ads. Facebook ad products are differentiated primarily by the fact that Facebook is so knowledgeable about people. People is just kind of the foundation of Facebook. The mission is to connect the world, and pretty much everything we do is about connecting people to each other. The ads team, we connect people and businesses, so our portion of the mission is to focus on the connection between people and businesses. The surprise, I guess, is that the way that people work within the Facebook ad products is not obvious. It's not the way you might think. The normal way people think about sort of people in advertising is targeting data, right? That you're going to use Facebook information to find the right people to target, and this is valuable. It's true. It's an important part of the product. You can target, women 18 to 24 living in cities who like BMW. So you can do that sort of targeting on the platform. However, that is not the most important use of the people-based kind of asset at Facebook. It's really not even close. Not even within the targeting area is that the most important information. Custom audiences is actually a more important use of the people asset, and that is a very humbling for us, and it's an acknowledgement that the data that you have about your customers or prospects or leads is as valuable, if not more valuable, than the data that we have. And what we can really do with our understanding of people is just match, join our data set to yours so that you can leverage it on the platform. And that actually turns out to be as important, if not more important, than the underlying data about interests and behaviors. And then the real power is once you're able to give us a small group of people that really resonate with your product. Maybe they're your best customers, or maybe they're your most high value prospects. It's pretty straightforward for us, using all the information that we have about people, to find you a group that is statistically similar. And then you can use our targeting tools on top of that to slice that group up and put together messages. So the custom audiences and the lookalikes aspects of the people product are really, really essential for targeting, in many ways more so than the data that we have on its own. On top of that foundation, we're able to build measurement products using this people-based approach that others in the industry just don't have. And understanding the way people react to your marketing is really central in helping you make better marketing and help you get better results and help people get better ads. And so the measurement stack that leverages the people-based stuff, the first one is cross-device measurement. The vast majority of Facebook ad impressions are shown on mobile devices. And as we all know, oftentimes it's not the most convenient device for a user to convert on. It's often difficult to type in all the information, go through all the conversations that are necessary to buy something on a mobile device. And so understanding how that mobile ad impression led to outcomes on other devices is really, really important. It's quite rare in the industry. And having that sort of airtight connection, because all the usage of Facebook is logged in usage, it's easy for us to understand whether the person who converted is the same person who saw the ad and report on that back to you. Understanding that cross-publisher is enabled, especially deduping reach and frequency. In cookie-based environments, oftentimes you have the impression that you're reaching a really enormous number of people, and in fact, oftentimes your reach is quite a bit lower than you'd otherwise think, and your frequency is much higher. And we see that every time we bring people-based measurement cross-publisher. So that's another really important measurement differentiator using the people information. And then, of course, multi-touch. This is just any technique that lets you attribute your value across the multiple touches is useful. If you're not doing it, you should be. And Facebook's technology lets us power a unique solution there. And then finally, and I think most importantly, is lift testing. This is really truly like the first time I think we have really good controlled tests in marketing that you can run at scale. And what lift testing is, quite simply, is just taking a group of people who are statistically identical to the people that you're targeting and just not show that group the ad. Right? So a holdout group that just doesn't see your ads. And then you can observe their behavior over time compared to the group that does see your ads. You can see if they buy more things from you, if they come to your site more often. And then conclude the only difference between the two groups, because they're statistically identical, is the exposure to your ads on the platform. And that basically makes it possible to do science, in a way that really wasn't possible before. And that is going to be good for everyone in the ecosystem. And then once you've got some measurement, now we have something we can try to optimize. And all the fancy, artificial intelligence and machine learning is really just designed to try to, at the individual level, predict whether this user is likely to do the thing that you as an advertiser wanted them to do. And so artificial intelligence and individual relevance is the way that we maximize total advertiser value from our ad auction. So that's pretty reduced, simplified version of our differentiation. It starts with people, goes to measurement, and then once you have something you can measure, we can optimize for it. And we just try to kind of run that loop over and over again, getting smarter as we go and trying to help you make better marketing and trying to help our users see more relevant advertising. And that sort of hamster wheel has been driving the business forward over the course of the last 3 years. It's the primary cause of our improvement in ROI on the platform. How many people understand at the high level how ad auctions work? Okay, like 3 hands. Okay, cool. So I'm going to very quickly talk you through an example of the auction. When you buy an ad from Facebook, there are 2 really important pieces of information that you give us. The most important, so this is a real example. This is an ad auction for me. So this is advertisers bidding for 1 second of my attention. And this is the way Facebook decides who gets to show me an ad. The first thing you tell us when you buy an ad is what your objective is. This is really important because without knowing your objective, we can't optimize for your objective. And And that is the key thing. We want we want you to get what you want at the lowest possible price. So this first advertiser is an app install ad. The second advertiser is looking for a conversion. In this case, it's a sign up for a subscription service. And then that last advertiser on the end is just looking for someone to visit their website, click on a link. The other thing that you give us is how much that thing is worth to you as an advertiser, a bid. So here the app install advertiser is a $7 install. The conversion was a $130 conversion, and this is a 57-cent link click. All the fancy machine learning, all the artificial intelligence, all the PhDs and rocket science comes down to this one estimate, which is just our system's best guess as to whether I, in this case, am going to install that app, sign up for that service, or click on that link. So at the end of the day, it's a very simple estimation. It's a very practical estimation. It's a very measurable estimation. And so we can check every day how accurate our estimates are and try to tune them to make them more accurate. In this case, it's a 0.7% chance I install the app, a 0.01% chance that I convert, and whatever that is, 3.5% chance that I click the link. We multiply those together, and that gives us an estimated CPM. This is not uncommon. To have a range of $18 to $48 for the same impression. And that's because the estimated probabilities are very different, right? Like I may be the kind of person who installs a lot of apps and never watch videos, and so these things come back like this often. And the way we work the auction is we just charge the winner, 1 cent more than second place. So if you want to think about the way this works to maximize value, if you think about that $7 install, and our estimate of the probability, that's a $48 impression, and we only charge $20. And that's how we're able to deliver excellent value. And that's just due to accurate estimation and good measurement. Cool. So that's very high-level walk through Facebook ads and how they work. Now this is the slightly more philosophical section, which is to talk a little bit about growth. So I've been doing growth type work since before we called it growth. I think it's a great word for it, and I think it's worth thinking about for a second in this sort of segment what we mean by growth, and I guess what I'd encourage you to think about is that all things that grow, they share similar patterns. They grow in similar ways. And that it is a very universal process. And so you can kind of think about other things that that grow, whether those are humans or plants or whatever else, and think about how you as a person diagnose whether their growth is healthy or not. When you look at a plant, you can see if it's like sick or not sick, if it's doing well or not well. That's the same kind of process you're taking with your startup or with your business. It's kind of diagnosing its growth health. And one of the things that is really key to appreciate is that all things that grow from a source of fuel, right? There is a thing that you are plugging into when you grow. That's why you see the same sort of patterns in all of these growing things. So in this example, you got a tree root, some lung tissue, and those are city streets on the right. They all have that same kind of branching shape. And the reason they have that same branching shape is because the shape's doing the same thing in all three cases, right? It's pulling moisture in or oxygen in or people or supplies into the growing thing, right? It's just an effective shape for that access to fuel. In the case of technology products, the fuel is people. Your products are doing something for your customers. Right, there are people whose needs are being served by your products, and if you're doing a good job, you're really serving their needs accurately. And so the really important thing to think about is where are the people and how are they expressing their needs, because that's the source you need to branch into in order to grow your company or your product. So thinking about like where they are in terms of the geography, whatever that is, maybe it's physical geography, maybe it's what kinds of devices are they using, right? Depends on sort of how you're thinking about your markets, and then how you can reach them with the right message. That is the thing of startup growth. What makes it different for technology, is that technology is invisible. So, we don't have like a plant. We can't look at it and say, this company is sick, right? It's getting too much sun or not enough water, whatever it may be. So in order to know how it's doing, you have to measure it with data. And that's why data and growth, at least technology growth, are so intertwined and interlinked. It really is the way that you can tell if the thing is moving in the way you want it to move. And so the way you choose to measure it and the kinds of data that you use inside your enterprise is a hugely important question. So ultimately you have to choose a metric by which to measure the value that your business is creating or the outcomes it's generating. And not all metrics are equally good. There are aspects of good metrics. And so these are ones that have worked for teams that I've worked with over time, my own teams. The first and most important thing is when you share the metric, when you choose a metric for how you grow your company, it needs to make intuitive sense to you and everyone in your enterprise why that metric matters. If people don't feel like the metric matters and they can't get really excited about coming to work to try to make that metric go up over the course of decades of their lives or at least years, it's probably not a good metric. It's probably not really a deep, visceral enough metric. You should probably find something people care more about, because good metrics align to the value that you're creating, right? And everyone should be excited about the value that you're creating. It aligns effort, right? So it's really important that the metric just very intuitively matters. It also has to be controllable. And by controllable, I mean that you or the teams that are working on the work have the technologies they need, have the systems, have the people, have the oversight they need to build the things that will move the metric. Getting these two things, something that matters and that you control, those are the hard. If you can do that, you have a very good metric. It's very hard to square them. The things that matter most are hard to control, and the things that are easy to control usually don't matter. So you have to work really hard to balance these two to find a great metric. These other ones are kind of optional. They're kind of nice to have. It's great if it's hard to make the metric move up in bad ways. Right? If you can think of ways to game the metric, then you need to put steps in place to avoid gaming, because if you're incentivizing people, those games do get played. So the less gameable, the better. If it's a long-term metric, maybe it's annual sales. The problem with annual sales is you can only really measure that over the course of a year. So it's slow. Kind of daily sales in some ways is it's a faster metric. And the faster you're able to look to see how you're doing, the faster you're able to learn. So you want to have a metric that's relatively easy to learn on. And then lastly, when you break it down, it's nice to be able to break it down across many dimensions so that you can see different concentrations. And that helps you understand, in our case, active advertisers are much higher in the United States than they are in Japan. Why is that? What's going on there? How can I learn something by breaking it down by country? Or what if I break it down by objective? Maybe we have more app install advertisers than we do video. What could I learn that way? So having a metric you can break down across a number of dimensions and then have an explanatory effect, that's nice. Those are nice to haves. But this is the key question for plugging your startup into Facebook ads, is having a nice, fast, explainable, controllable metric that matters. So putting it together is relatively straightforward. Hopefully you can sort of see how this works. This is basically a long advertisement for closed-loop marketing. You imagine some way to connect your product to your customer in a message or benefit language that really matters to them. You place that ad, you measure how it went as scientifically as possible according to your metric. Whatever it is you picked for your startup, hopefully it's a fast one, and you can tell within a week whether or not it's working, and if so, how well. You hopefully squeeze some understanding out of that, and the easiest way to get understanding out of it is just to test many things at the same time that are different in thoughtful ways. So maybe you want to test whether people are responding to price or a feature. So design a test, take a look at your metric, learn whether it's price or feature. If it's feature, go and test again by emphasizing the feature. So very straightforward, just kind of closed loop marketing. But as long as you've got sort of the objective right and the measurement on your side right, and the help from Facebook ads to put those two things together and make it people oriented, that's the way you grow a startup. So I'm just going to speak for 1 minute about the way this is changing, like kind of things that we expect to happen in the future, and then I should have a good few minutes for questions. In terms of the way this is going in the future, I'll just talk about 3 trends at a really high level. One is dynamic creative and just a much greater proliferation of immersive creative. Narrower targeting and speaking a little bit differently to each group. So it's one thing to sort of test a couple of messages against a really big group and then use the one that works. Slightly better way is test a couple of messages against a big group and then figure out the people who resonated with each and then sub-target that group so that you can keep speaking to the groups that care about price and price terms and the groups that care about the features and feature terms, and just maintain a slightly different narrative and dialogue with each of your customer sets. It's obviously, much more advanced and, requires much more discipline to do. It requires much more creative creation, but it is the way that the industry is going, and the best marketers are getting substantially better results by having much higher volumes of creative and targeting them more narrowly. The second trend is just the increasing ingestion of offline information and having it come online in people-based ways. As point-of-sale systems are digital, as people are using their phones to make purchases, you're starting to get this connection between the offline world and the online world, which is making the offline world more measurable than it has been in the past. And so if your businesses are primarily not technological and they still operate inside a retail store or wherever the case may be, or inside an office, the ability to still measure your outcomes in a nice scientific way is improving quickly. So that's an exciting trend. I think people who are on the leading edge of that will have an advantage for several years. And then the last one I'd talk about is just the increasing importance of machine learning and AI, generally speaking. Within the ads ecosystem, at least in the way we do it, it has a very important role to play inside the auction, as I demonstrated, but it's got an increasingly wide role to play in terms of understanding intent, understanding brand value, and trying to make longer term and more deeply meaningful connections between people through more nuanced understanding. So those are the 3 trends I see that kind of driving things forward, at least into the next few years. Those are definitely going to accumulate practitioners, third-party tools and technologies that'll give people who know them well an advantage. All right, so that's the substance of it. Happy to take questions. I got this for
you. Thank you for awesome information. A lot of the people here are in B2B space. There are only few hands that rose when they asked for B2C people. So Facebook is super awesome in creating lookalike audiences. It works great when you have a large set of existing customer base. But for B2B businesses, one of the challenges is the number of customers is a few hundred, at the maximum, or a few thousand. I heard that Facebook works great when you have at least 1,500 sample to create a lookalike audience. Does it work for 300, 200 range?
It does. I mean, it works better with more signal. It's true. I generally guide people towards 1,000, but you can make reasonable lookalike audiences with just a few hundred. There's also, in many of the B2B, businesses, you can sort of put a maybe slightly expensive kind of collection mechanism in place. By targeting, native interests, people who are interested in, publications or technologies that are specific to your vertical, sort of win them into watching your video or visiting your website, and then really very carefully assemble retargeting audiences based on the engagement you get and start to develop the dialogue that way. So the earlier top of the funnel stuff might be a little more expensive, but you can still accumulate, a really good base of customers even without lookalike seeds.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, you can also do the questions through in-app, and we'll take those as well.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for the insights into Facebook's targeting on ads. So I'm intrigued by the fact that you have chosen to create personas based on the businesses, the ones that the businesses provide, and map them with statistical measures to your existing customers.
Yeah.
Has that been driven by your customers, or is this something that the Facebook decided they were going to do? I mean, I can see that it increases the signal to the noise, but there seems to be some tremendous potential where businesses could find that they are reaching out to some customers that they would probably not have thought of in the traditional sense. If Facebook could provide a generic platform and some advanced capabilities, especially using AI and machine learning, to kind of do some very targeted ads based on users' general behavior on Facebook. Is that something that you guys might revive or consider down the line?
Oh, it's there. I mean, so native targeting based on interests and demographics and behaviors is very much a part of the platform, and it includes, I mean, a pretty rich set of demographics, including things like job title and education. So even for the B2B question, like there's tools you can use, native tools on Facebook, to try to reach people if the way that you think about them is demographic or behavioral. We do have those tools. But to answer your question, yes, the custom audience product was driven by customers saying, hey, I have a really valuable list of leads here. I want to reach them. Can you help me? And just to be completely transparent about it, there was a big debate when we built that product as to how much value it would offer. And we were delighted and somewhat surprised at how valuable it is. I mean, it really is central for so many people, so many advertisers, and for such like a wide range of our success studies. And a lot of that is just because, to unlock the real power of machine learning and AI in the platform, all that statistical kind of distance between one person and another, we need an example of the kinds of people that are interesting to very much specifically you and your business, whether that's in one region or with one, particular interest or sub-interest. Like, it's very hard to describe that perfectly using the existing demographic information, but you've got a very short list of people who came in to take a test drive, and we can look at that and say, oh yeah, look, this is here's where they are in the world, here's the kind of interest they have, and here's a bunch more people just like them.
There is one question in the app. How are Facebook ads better than Google search-based ads?
That Google search-based ads don't work. Those are terrible. No, I mean, they're so different. They're just really, really different, and they use very different, techniques and technologies to, to deliver their value. I think there is nothing better than a search-based ad if the goal of marketing is to sort of fulfill a sales function. If someone's already looking for your product or your name or your brand and they're searching for it, it's just a fantastic opportunity to tap into intent and convert a customer. Unfortunately, for most, and probably almost every new product and many long existing products, oftentimes people don't know they want them. They don't know they need them. And just the fact that the product exists is not, no one's aware of it. And so you might have a brand new, juice drink, to name a recent example, the world's never seen before. No one's searching for it. So this gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the right sort of people using a pretty visually rich and dynamic, sort of ad experience, which can bring them into, a deeper relationship. And then we have tools for you to convert them later. So I think, we're a little bit more oriented towards the top and middle of the funnel, and they're a little more oriented towards the bottom. But just to be honest, both companies are moving towards each other in many ways, and the ad products have their own unique twists and turns. But I think that's a good way to think about how you might use the two products together, or leverage their relative strengths.
Hello, I have two questions for you. I'm on your right.
I'm looking for it. You're coming to me from my left speaker. Yeah.
So the first one is, you spoke about ad personalization, dynamic optimization of the creative of the ad. We do a lot of Facebook targeting, and one of the thin lines we try to walk very cautiously is that too much personalization could also be an invasion of privacy when we talk to our customers and when we talk to a potential lead. So what's your recommendation, suggestion there? That's the first question.
Yeah.
The second one is cross-channel attribution. So you spoke about multi-touch point attribution using Facebook's platform. Is there a vision that Facebook is trying to nurture which also takes into account organic traffic, search traffic, or traffic that is beyond Facebook's catch right now?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. Those are really hard questions. They're good ones. In terms of the personalization getting to make people uncomfortable, it does. There's certainly cases of that. And Facebook, we often argue about what areas we want to make the targeting really granular and what areas are just, is it not a good experience for people? We try to put some kind of guardrails on that experience. We keep it so targeting groups are, you can't target just one person, these sorts of things, to try to make the kind of worst possible use cases unlikely. But I would say you as an advertiser should think about your product category and how people are likely to feel about it. If you're offering, I don't know, dating services, that's probably a little bit more sensitive than if you're trying to offer, I don't know, a new car. And if you're offering services to treat, I don't know, anxiety or depression, that's probably a little more sensitive than dating. And you can think about how customers are likely to respond to your messages. Facebook's trying to try to set the rules so that you're not doing anything that certainly violates any laws or even puts people in a place where they're likely to block you or prevent you from speaking to them again, which does happen in cases where people are scared or confused about the degree of the targeting. In terms of your question on cross-publisher measurement, yeah, we do have, so the evolution of our Atlas product is, we launched this last month. It's a thing called Facebook Advanced Measurement. It is a cross-publisher measurement tool that uses the sort of people-based approach. It's testing now with a pretty large number of larger customers, and so it will be rolling out more broadly soon. But Facebook's also taken a very increasingly open approach with the measurement ecosystem and third parties to try to enable them to use people-based measurement to bring you some at least important high-level cross-publisher numbers. So if you're using, for example, Moat or IAS right now, we have integrations with them where you can get information about deduped reach and duration and viewability and lots of nice important statistics in a robust way through their tools. So we're not, although we do have a product of our own, we certainly don't require you use that. We just recommend you do use something so you have a clear sense of what's happening.